As a retired mailman, I thought I had seen it all, the good, the bad, and the ugly of human nature. But nothing could have prepared me for the moment when my own daughter, the child I had raised and loved with all my heart, betrayed me in front of a live-streamed audience of hundreds. With a few cruel words and a mocking laugh, she stripped away my dignity and my pride, leaving me feeling small and worthless. But I refused to let her have the last word. With a strength I didn't know I possessed, I took the microphone and delivered a speech that no one would ever forget, a testament to the power of resilience, the importance of respect, and the unbreakable bond of a father's love. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The morning of my daughter's wedding dawned bright and clear, with a soft breeze rustling through the trees and the sweet scent of spring blossoms filling the air. I woke early, as I always did, my body still attuned to the rhythms of my postal route, even though I had retired nearly a decade ago. As I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee and watching the golden sunlight spill across the hardwood floor, I couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy wash over me. This was the day I had been dreading for months, the day when my little girl, my precious Sarah, would leave the nest for good and start a new life with her soon-to-be husband. Oh, don't get me wrong. I was happy for her, of course. Michael was a good man, kind and hard-working, and devoted to my daughter in a way that warmed my old heart. But a part of me couldn't help but feel a sense of loss, a pang of grief for the years that had passed so quickly, for the memories that seemed to fade a little more with each passing day. I thought back to the day Sarah was born, the way she had felt so tiny and perfect in my arms, her little face scrunched up in confusion at this strange new world she had entered. I remembered the way she used to toddle after me on my mail route, her chubby little legs pumping as she tried to keep up with my long strides. I remembered the tea parties and the bedtime stories, the scraped knees and the broken hearts, the laughter and the tears that had filled our home and our lives for so many years. And I felt a lump rise in my throat at the thought that those days were gone forever, that my little girl was all grown up and ready to start a family of her own. But I pushed those thoughts aside as I finished my coffee and headed upstairs to get dressed for the big day. I had a job to do, after all, a father's sacred duty to walk his daughter down the aisle and give her away to the man she loved. As I buttoned up my shirt and tied my tie, I caught sight of myself in the mirror, and I couldn't help but chuckle at the image that greeted me. Gone was the strapping young man who had once turned heads with his crisp postal uniform and his easy smile. In his place was a weathered old fellow with thinning gray hair and a face lined with the marks of a life well lived. But there was still a sparkle in my eye, a spring in my step that belied my 80 years. And as I straightened my shoulders and took a deep breath, I felt a sense of pride and purpose fill my chest. I might be an old man, but I was still Clifford Reeves, the most reliable mailman in town, the father who had always been there for his daughter no matter what. And today, I would be there for her again, standing tall and proud as I gave her away to the man who would be her partner, her protector, her love for the rest of her days. It was a bittersweet moment, to be sure, but it was also a moment of joy, of celebration, of the unbreakable bond between a father and his child. With a final nod to my reflection, I grabbed my car keys and headed out the door, ready to face whatever the day might bring. Little did I know, however, that the true test of my strength and my love was yet to come, that the betrayal and the heartache that awaited me would shake me to my very core. But in that moment, as I drove through the quiet streets of our little town, the sun shining down on the promise of a new day, all I felt was the warmth of a father's love, the unshakable certainty that no matter what happened, I would always be there for my little girl, my precious Sarah, always and forever, until the end of my days. The church was a bustling hive of activity when I arrived, with florists and caterers and photographers scurrying about like busy bees. The air was filled with the heady scent of roses and lilies, the gentle strains of the string quartet warming up in the corner. I made my way through the chaos with a smile and a nod, shaking hands and exchanging pleasantries with the guests who had come to celebrate this special day. There were old friends and neighbors, co-workers and acquaintances, people from every corner of our lives who had come together to share in our joy. But as I stepped into the little room where Sarah was getting ready, all the noise and the commotion faded away, replaced by a stillness and a sense of awe that took my breath away. There, standing before me, in a vision of white lace and satin, was my little girl, my beautiful daughter, looking every inch the radiant bride. "Oh, Sarah," I whispered, my voice choked with emotion. "You look absolutely stunning." She turned to face me, her eyes shining with tears and her smile brighter than the sun itself. "Thanks, Dad," she said softly, reaching out to take my hand in hers. "I'm so glad you're here." I swallowed hard, fighting back the lump in my throat as I gazed down at her, my heart swelling with love and pride. "I wouldn't miss this for the world, sweetheart," I said, my voice rough with emotion. "I've been dreaming of this day since the moment you were born." She laughed then, a sound like tinkling bells that filled the room with warmth and light. "I know, Dad," she said, squeezing my hand tightly. "You've always been there for me, through thick and thin. I don't know what I would have done without you." I felt a rush of warmth flood through me at her words, a sense of gratitude and humility that brought tears to my eyes. I had always tried my best to be a good father, to provide for my family and to love them with all my heart. But to hear Sarah say those words, to know that I had made a difference in her life, it meant more to me than anything else in the world. We stayed like that for a long moment, just holding each other and savoring the sweetness of the moment. But all too soon, it was time to go, to take our places at the altar and begin the ceremony that would bind Sarah and Michael together forever. As I walked her down the aisle, my arm linked with hers and my heart bursting with love, I felt a sense of peace and contentment wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the moment when I would give my little girl away to the man she loved, secure in the knowledge that she would always have a special place in my heart. But as we reached the altar, and I took my seat in the front row, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was a tension and an unease lurking just beneath the surface of the joyous occasion. I glanced around the church, trying to pinpoint the source of my discomfort. And that's when I saw it. The camera crew, set up in the back of the room, their lenses trained on the altar like hawks eyeing their prey. I felt a flicker of confusion, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I knew that Michael's family was wealthy, that they moved in different circles than our own humble clan. But I had never imagined that they would go so far as to hire a professional film crew to document the wedding, to broadcast it to the world like some kind of royal spectacle. And then, as the ceremony began and the officiant started to speak, I heard a sound that made my blood run cold, the unmistakable click and whir of the cameras, the hum of the live stream that was beaming this intimate moment to hundreds, perhaps thousands of strangers across the globe. I felt a flash of anger, a sense of betrayal that cut me to the core. This was supposed to be a sacred moment, a private celebration of love and commitment. But now it felt cheap and tawdry, like a reality TV show or a social media stunt. I glanced over at Sarah, trying to catch her eye, to gauge her reaction to this unexpected turn of events. But she was lost in the moment, her gaze fixed on Michael's face, her lips moving in silent vows of love and devotion. And so I sat there, my hands clenched in my lap, and my heart heavy with a sense of foreboding, as the ceremony unfolded before me like a surreal dream. I tried to focus on the beauty of the moment, on the joy and the love that radiated from the happy couple. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was deeply wrong, that this was a moment that would come back to haunt us all. As the officiant pronounced Sarah and Michael husband and wife, as the congregation erupted in cheers and applause, I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of unease that I couldn't quite put into words. And then, as Sarah and Michael made their way back down the aisle, hand in hand and beaming with happiness, I saw something that made my heart stop dead in my chest. There, on the screen at the back of the church, was an image of myself, not the proud and loving father I had always tried to be, but a caricature, a mockery of everything I held dear. It was a photo from my days as a mailman, a candid shot of me in my uniform, my bag slung over my shoulder, and my face creased in concentration. But someone had edited the image, had added cruel and mocking captions that made me out to be a fool, a simpleton, a man unworthy of respect or admiration. Clifford Reeves, the mailman who couldn't even deliver his own daughter to the altar on time, read one caption, accompanied by a chorus of laughter from the unseen audience. No wonder Sarah turned out so well. She had to raise herself with a father like that, read another, followed by a barrage of emoji tears and smirking faces. I felt my face flush with shame and anger, my eyes stinging with tears of humiliation and betrayal. How could they do this to me, on this day of all days? How could they take something so precious, so sacred, and turn it into a cheap joke for the amusement of strangers? I looked over at Sarah, hoping to see a flicker of outrage or indignation on her face. But to my horror, I saw something else entirely, a smirk, a gleam of malicious amusement in her eyes, as she watched my humiliation play out on the screen. And in that moment I knew that I had lost her, not just to Michael and his family, but to a world that valued cruelty and mockery over kindness and respect. A world that saw me as nothing more than a punchline, a relic of a bygone era, to be ridiculed and discarded. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces, my soul crying out in anguish and despair. But even as the pain threatened to overwhelm me, even as the betrayal cut me to the core, I knew that I could not let this moment define me, that I could not let my daughter's cruelty and callousness be the final word on my life and my legacy. And so, with a strength I didn't know I possessed, with a courage born of a lifetime of love and sacrifice, I rose to my feet and made my way to the front of the church, my head held high and my eyes blazing with a fierce, unyielding determination. I had a speech to give, a truth to tell, and nothing, not even the betrayal of my own flesh and blood, was going to stop me from being heard. As I stepped up to the microphone, my hands trembling and my heart pounding in my chest, I could feel the weight of 100 eyes upon me, the tension in the room so thick you could cut it with a knife. The camera crew had turned their lenses on me now, their faces eager and expectant, like vultures circling a wounded animal. But I refused to be cowed, refused to let their hunger for drama and spectacle diminish the importance of what I had to say. I took a deep breath, my gaze sweeping over the sea of faces before me, some curious, some pitying, some openly hostile. And then, in a voice that was steady and clear, I began to speak. "Friends, family, honored guests," I said, my words ringing out through the stillness of the church. "I stand before you today not as a mailman, not as a relic of a bygone era, but as a father. A man who has loved his daughter with every fiber of his being from the moment she first drew breath." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in, watching as the smirks and the sneers on the faces before me began to fade, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty, of curiosity. "I know that I am not a perfect man," I continued, my voice growing stronger with each passing moment. "I know that I have made my share of mistakes, that I have not always been the father that Sarah deserved, but I have always tried my best, always given everything I had to ensure that she had a roof over her head, food on the table, and a love that knew no bounds. I could see Sarah's face now, her eyes wide and her lips parted in shock, as if she couldn't quite believe what she was hearing. But I pressed on, determined to say my piece, to speak the truth that had been burning in my heart for so long. "I have watched you grow from a tiny, helpless baby into a strong, beautiful woman," I said, my voice carking with emotion. "I have held your hand through every triumph and every heartbreak, every moment of joy and every moment of sorrow, and I have never once wavered in my love for you, never once doubted that you were the most precious gift that life had ever given me." I could hear the murmurs of the crowd now, the rustling of fabric and the shifting of feet as they leaned forward in their seats, hanging on my every word. And I knew that I had them, that I had captured their attention and their hearts in a way that no one else had managed to do. "But today," I said, my voice growing hard and cold, "I have seen a side of you that I never knew existed, a side that is cruel and callous, that sees fit to mock and belittle the very people who have loved you and supported you all your life. And it breaks my heart, Sarah, breaks it in a way that I never thought possible." I could see the tears welling up in her eyes now, the flush of shame and regret spreading across her cheeks. But I couldn't stop, couldn't hold back the flood of emotion that was pouring out of me like a torrent. "I know that I am not a perfect father," I said, my voice carking with grief and anger. "But I have always tried to be a good one, to love you and support you and guide you in the way that I thought was right. And to see you now, to see the way you have treated me on this day of all days, it makes me question everything I thought I knew about you, everything I thought I had taught you about love and respect and kindness." I could hear the gasps and the whispers of the crowd now, could feel the weight of their judgment and their pity pressing down upon me like a physical force. But I refused to be broken, refused to let their opinions and their expectations define me or my worth as a father. "I know that I am just a simple man," I said, my voice growing softer, more reflective. I know that I don't have the money or the status or the influence of some of the people in this room, but I have something that is far more valuable, something that can never be bought or sold or traded away, and that is my integrity, my honor, and my love for my daughter. I looked out over the sea of faces once more, my gaze coming to rest on Sarah's tear-stained face, on the look of shock and guilt and remorse that was etched across her delicate features. "And so, my dear Sarah," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I want you to know that I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I love you, and because I know that forgiveness is the only way forward, the only way to heal all the wounds that have been inflicted upon us both. But I also want you to know that I will never forget this moment, never forget the way you made me feel on what should have been the happiest day of your life." I stepped back from the microphone then, my shoulders slumping and my eyes filling with tears. I had said my piece, had spoken the truth that had been burning in my heart for so long. And now, there was nothing left to do but wait. Wait for the reaction of the crowd, for the judgment of the cameras, for the final verdict on my life and my legacy. But even as I stood there, trembling and exhausted, I felt a sense of peace wash over me, a sense of rightness and purpose that I had never known before. I had faced my deepest fears and my darkest demons, had stared down the betrayal and the heartache that had threatened to break me. And I had emerged stronger, wiser, and more sure of myself than ever before. And as I looked out over the stunned and silent faces of the congregation, as I saw the tears and the nods of understanding and respect, I knew that I had done something that would be remembered for years to come, something that would inspire and uplift and challenge all those who heard it to be better, to do better, to live and love with all the courage and all the compassion that they could muster. For I was Clifford Reeves, not just a mailman, not just a father, but a man who had stood tall in the face of adversity, who had spoken truth to power and love to hate, and who had emerged victorious in the battle for his own soul. And that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all, the gift of knowing that I had lived a life of purpose and meaning, a life that had touched and changed the world in ways that I could never have imagined. And so, with a final nod to the congregation and a gentle squeeze of Sarah's hand, I stepped down from the altar and made my way out of the church, my head held high, and my heart full of hope and promise for the future that lay ahead. The days and weeks that followed my speech at Sarah's wedding were a time of great upheaval and change in my life. The video of my heartfelt words had gone viral, spreading across social media and news outlets like wildfire, sparking a national conversation about the importance of family, respect, and the true meaning of love. Everywhere I went, people stopped me on the street to shake my hand, to thank me for my courage and my honesty, to share their own stories of heartache and healing. I received letters and emails from all over the world, from people who had been touched by my words and inspired to make changes in their own lives. And yet, even as I basked in the glow of this newfound attention and admiration, I couldn't shake the deep sense of sadness and loss that had taken root in my heart. For all the praise and all the accolades, the fact remained that my relationship with Sarah had been fundamentally altered, perhaps irreparably so. She had reached out to me in the days following the wedding, had apologized tearfully and profusely for her behavior, for the way she had allowed her new family's influence to cloud her judgment and her loyalty. But even as I listened to her words, even as I felt the sincerity and the regret that poured out of her like a river, I knew that things could never be the same between us. The trust had been broken, the bond that had once been unshakable now fragile and strained. And though I still loved her with all my heart, though I still wanted nothing more than to see her happy and fulfilled, I knew that I could no longer be a part of her life in the same way that I had been before. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of bittersweet acceptance, I began to distance myself from Sarah and her new family, to build a life of my own that was separate from the hurt and the betrayal that had once threatened to consume me. I threw myself into my hobbies and my passions, rediscovering the joys of gardening and woodworking and all the little things that had once brought me so much peace and contentment. I volunteered at the local community center, teaching classes on everything from basic home repair to the art of storytelling, sharing the wisdom and the experience that I had gained over a lifetime of hard work and simple living. And perhaps most importantly, I began to write, to pour out all the thoughts and feelings and memories that had been swirling around in my head for so long, to craft them into stories and poems and essays that spoke to the human condition in all its messy, beautiful complexity. At first, it was just a way to process my own emotions, to make sense of the whirlwind of change and upheaval that had overtaken my life. But as the pages began to pile up, as the words began to flow more easily and the ideas began to take on a life of their own, I started to realize that I had something special on my hands, something that could touch people's hearts and minds in a way that few things could. And so, with a sense of nervous excitement and cautious optimism, I began to share my writing with others, with friends and neighbors, with fellow retirees and aspiring authors, with anyone who would listen and give me honest feedback. The response was overwhelming, a flood of praise and encouragement that left me feeling both humbled and exhilarated. People told me that my words had moved them to tears, had made them laugh and think and see the world in a different light. They urged me to keep writing, to share my gift with as many people as possible, to use my voice to make a difference in the world. And so, with a sense of purpose and determination that I had never known before, I threw myself into my new calling, pouring all my energy and all my passion into the craft of writing. I joined writing groups and attended workshops, honing my skills and learning from the masters of the trade. I submitted my work to literary magazines and online publications, collecting rejections and acceptances like badges of honor. And slowly but surely I began to build a name for myself, to carve out a place in the world of letters that was all my own. My essays and stories started to appear in prestigious journals and anthologies, my byline becoming a familiar sight to readers across the country. But even as I reveled in this newfound success and recognition, even as I felt the thrill of knowing that my words were making a difference in people's lives, I never forgot the lessons that I had learned on that fateful day at Sarah's wedding. The lessons of love and forgiveness, of courage and compassion, of the unbreakable bonds of family, and the indomitable strength of the human spirit. And so, when the time came for me to write my memoir, the story of my life, the legacy that I wanted to leave behind for generations to come, I knew exactly what I wanted to say, exactly how I wanted to say it. I wrote about my childhood in the small town of Millfield, about the hardscrabble years of the Depression and the way my parents had scraped and saved to give me and my siblings a better life. I wrote about my days as a mailman, about the joy and the pride I had felt in serving my community, in being a part of something bigger than myself. I wrote about my marriage to my beloved wife, Mabel, about the laughter and the tears and the love that had sustained us through the ups and downs of life. I wrote about the birth of our daughter, Sarah, about the wonder and the terror of holding that tiny, perfect bundle in my arms for the first time. And I wrote about the day of Sarah's wedding, about the betrayal and the heartache that had nearly broken me, about the strength and the courage that had allowed me to rise above the pain and the anger and the fear to speak my truth and to claim my place in the world. I poured my heart and soul into those pages, leaving nothing out, holding nothing back. And when I was finished, when I held the final manuscript in my hands and felt the weight of all those words and all those memories, I knew that I had created something special, something that would endure long after I was gone. And so, with a sense of peace and gratitude and deep, abiding love, I sent the manuscript off to my publisher, knowing that my story, the story of Clifford Reeves, the mailman turned writer, the father turned survivor, would soon be shared with the world. And as I sat back in my easy chair, watching the sun set over the hills and the fields of Millfield, I felt a sense of contentment and fulfillment that I had never known before, a sense that I had lived a life well lived, a life that had mattered in ways both big and small. For I had loved and I had lost, I had suffered and I had triumphed, I had spoken truth to power, and had emerged stronger and wiser for the experience. And in the end, that was all any of us could ask for. The chance to leave this world a little better than we found it, to make a difference in the lives of those we touched along the way. And so, with a smile on my face and a song in my heart, I closed my eyes and drifted off to sleep, secure in the knowledge that my legacy, the legacy of a simple man with a big heart and an unshakable spirit, would live on forever, a testament to the power of love and the indomitable resilience of the human soul. The release of my memoir, The Mailman's Daughter, was a moment of great triumph and celebration in my life. After months of hard work and anticipation, of long hours spent poring over proofs and galleys and endless rounds of revisions, the book was finally ready to be shared with the world. The launch party was held at the Millfield Public Library, the same place where I had spent countless hours as a young man, devouring books and dreaming of the world beyond our small town. The room was packed with friends and family, with well-wishers and supporters from all walks of life, all eager to share in the joy of this momentous occasion. As I stood at the podium, looking out over the sea of smiling faces, I felt a lump rise in my throat, a sense of gratitude and humility that threatened to overwhelm me. These were the people who had stood by me through thick and thin, who had believed in me and supported me even when I hadn't believed in myself. And now, as I held up a copy of my book, as I saw the pride and the love shining in their eyes, I knew that all the struggles and all the sacrifices had been worth it, that I had truly achieved something remarkable and enduring. The response to the book was overwhelming, a flood of praise and acclaim that left me feeling both exhilarated and humbled. Critics hailed it as a masterpiece of memoir, a powerful and poignant exploration of family, love, and the human condition. Readers wrote to me from all over the world, sharing their own stories of heartache and healing, thanking me for giving voice to their own struggles and triumphs. And as the weeks and months passed, as the book climbed the bestseller lists and garnered awards and accolades, I found myself swept up in a whirlwind of activity and excitement. There were book tours and media appearances, speaking engagements, and author events, all opportunities to share my story and my message with a wider audience. But even as I reveled in this newfound success and recognition, even as I felt the thrill of knowing that my words were making a difference in people's lives, I never forgot the true meaning and purpose of my work: to inspire and uplift, to challenge and provoke, to remind us all of the beauty and the resilience of the human spirit. And so, when I was invited to speak at a conference on family and relationships, I knew that I had to use the opportunity to share the lessons that I had learned, the truths that had shaped my life and my writing. I took the stage in front of a packed auditorium, my heart pounding with nervousness and excitement. But as I looked out over the sea of faces, as I saw the hope and the hunger in their eyes, I felt a sense of calm and clarity wash over me, a deep knowing that I was exactly where I was meant to be. "Family," I began, my voice ringing out clear and strong, "is the most precious gift that any of us will ever receive. It is the foundation upon which we build our lives, the source of our deepest joys and our deepest sorrows. And yet, all too often, we take it for granted. We allow the pressures and the distractions of the world to pull us away from the people who matter most." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in, watching as the audience leaned forward in their seats, hanging on my every word. "I know this because I have lived it," I continued, my voice growing thick with emotion. "I have felt the sting of betrayal, the ache of loss, the fear of losing the love and the connection that had once been the center of my world. And I have also known the power of forgiveness, the healing balm of compassion, the unbreakable bonds of family that can weather any storm and emerge stronger and more beautiful than ever before." I could see tears glistening in the eyes of some of the audience members now, could feel the energy and the emotion crackling through the room like electricity. And I knew that I had them, that I had touched something deep and true within them, something that resonated with their own experiences and their own longings. "So let us never forget," I said, my voice rising to a crescendo, "the incredible gift that we have been given, the sacred trust that has been placed in our hands. Let us cherish our families, nurture them, fight for them with every ounce of strength and love that we possess. And let us always remember that no matter what challenges or obstacles we may face, we are never alone, never without the support and the love of those who matter most." As I stepped back from the podium, as the audience rose to their feet in a standing ovation that shook the rafters of the auditorium, I felt a sense of joy and fulfillment that I had never known before, a deep and abiding sense of purpose and meaning that filled every corner of my being. For I knew that I had made a difference, that I had touched hearts, and changed lives in ways that I could never have imagined. And I knew that no matter what the future might bring, I would always have this moment, this incredible gift of connection and communion with my fellow human beings. And so, as I made my way off stage, as I was embraced by the warmth and the love of the people who had come to hear me speak, I felt a sense of peace and gratitude wash over me, a deep and abiding sense of joy that could never be taken away. For I was Clifford Reeves, the mailman turned writer, the father turned sage. And I had found my calling, my purpose, my reason for being, and that, in the end, was the greatest gift of all, the most precious legacy that I could ever hope to leave behind. It's been 5 years since the release of The Mailman's Daughter. 5 years since my life was forever changed by the power of words and the magic of storytelling. And as I sit here in my cozy little study, surrounded by the books and the mementos of a life well lived, I can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude and wonder for the incredible journey that has brought me to this place. Oh, don't get me wrong, it hasn't always been easy. There have been moments of doubt and fear, of loneliness and loss, of the inevitable aches and pains that come with growing older. But through it all, I have had my writing, my family, my unshakable faith in the goodness and the resilience of the human spirit. And that has made all the difference in the end. Because no matter how dark the night or how steep the climb, I have always known that I had something beautiful and true to share with the world. Something that could touch hearts and change lives in ways that I could never have imagined. And so I have kept on writing, kept on speaking, kept on using my voice and my platform to make a difference in whatever way I could. I have continued to share my story and my message with anyone who would listen, from school children to seniors, from aspiring writers to world leaders. And everywhere I have gone, I have been met with the same response, with tears and laughter, with nods of recognition and murmurs of assent, with the deep and abiding sense that we are all connected, all part of the same great tapestry of love and loss and redemption. It hasn't been a perfect journey, of course. There have been setbacks and challenges, moments when the old wounds threatened to reopen and the old doubts crept back in. But I have learned to face them with courage and grace, to lean on the love and the support of those who matter most. And slowly but surely, I have begun to heal all, to find a new sense of peace and purpose in the wake of the storms that have shaped my life. I have reconnected with Sarah, forging a new and stronger bond that is built on honesty and understanding, on the recognition of our shared humanity and our shared struggles. And I have watched with pride and amazement as my words have taken on a life of their own, as they have inspired and empowered and transformed countless lives across the globe. I have received letters and emails from people of all ages and all walks of life, each one a testament to the enduring power of storytelling, to connect us, to uplift us, to remind us of the beauty and the wonder of the world around us. And so, as I sit here in the twilight of my years, surrounded by the love and the laughter of my family and friends, I can't help but feel a deep sense of peace and contentment, a sense that I have lived a life of meaning and purpose, a life that has made a difference in the world. And I know that whatever the future may bring, I will always have this moment, this incredible gift of words and wisdom and love. I will always have the knowledge that I have touched hearts and changed lives, that I have left a legacy of hope and healing that will endure long after I am gone. And that, in the end, is the greatest reward of all, the most precious gift that any of us could ever hope to receive. So I will keep on writing, keep on sharing, keep on using my voice to make the world a little broader, a little more beautiful, a little more full of love and compassion and joy. Because that is who I am, who I have always been. I am Clifford Reeves, the mailman turned writer, the father turned sage, and I will never stop delivering the message of hope and healing, of love and redemption to all those who need it most. That is my promise, my calling, my sacred duty, and I will fulfill it with every ounce of strength and courage and wisdom that I possess, until the very end and beyond. If you found Clifford's story of resilience, forgiveness, and the power of words inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting tales of everyday heroes making a difference in the world. And don't forget to share your own experiences and reflections in the comments below. We all have a story to tell, a message to share, a legacy to leave. By opening our hearts and our minds to the wisdom and the courage of others, we become part of something greater than ourselves, something that can change the world. One person, one story, one act of love at a time. So keep shining your light, my friends. Keep speaking your truth, keep using your voice to make a difference in whatever way you can. The world needs more heroes like Clifford Reeves, more everyday champions of hope and healing and love. And together, we can build a future that is broader, more beautiful, more full of promise and possibility than anything we have ever known. So let us go forth with courage and compassion, with the strength and the wisdom of those who have gone before us. And let us never ever stop believing in the power of our stories to change lives, to touch hearts, to make the world a little bit better, one word at a time. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. And may the words never stop flowing, the love never stop growing, the hope never stop shining. Until we meet again, on the pages and in the hearts of those we hold most dear.